And what do you do for the Army?
I'm a soldier, so I work on systems.
Jeffrey, I really appreciate you giving us your perspective there, and I do hope that you and those that you care about are able to move away and avoid this 6 to 7 foot, what you're hearing at least, tsunami wave that could reach you in a matter of hours. And what time are they saying that it will probably arrive for you? Have they given you a span of time? We've been hearing our own estimates here.
I've been hearing 3 a.m.
Okay.
I think the time now is about 4 hours or less.
Yeah, that is also what is the latest piece of information we have too, about 2:59 local time, that it will probably hit the coast of Hawaii. Jeffrey, it sounds like you're outside. What does the sea look like right now?
It's ripply. It's beautiful. The sky's cleared. I see the skies. We got a nice crescent moon. It's actually a little more quiet. I can see folks have moved out. I mean, the water is how it looks all the time. It's beautiful.
All right, Jeffrey Smugan, thank you so much. We will hope to talk to you later, maybe get an update. Please, if you don't mind, if we were to reach out to you as you try to get away from the coast. And when do you plan on leaving the coast? In the next hour or so, or right now? All right.
Up and head on the next hour. I appreciate the well wishes and prayers.
All right, Jeffrey. We will we'll touch base with you a little bit later, and we know you'll do well. It's Jeffrey Smugan, who is a soldier in the U.S. Army, who was telling us what he could see there in Oahu, in there in Hawaii, as the warning has come out to them that there could be a 6 to 7 foot tsunami wave hitting them at around 3 a.m. local time, about 4 hours from now. So we hope the best for them. We're watching that. And if you're just joining us, straight to the update in terms of what we know right now. An 8.9 earthquake hitting off the coast, the northeast coast of Japan. This only about 230 miles northeast of Tokyo. So on this map here, you see the epicenter in the red circles, and about 230 miles southwest of that is where Tokyo is. 13 million people as the buildings were shaking at 8.9 earthquake magnitude, and that is about 100 times greater than the Loma Prieta earthquake. Then, roughly about an hour later, tsunami waves, according to what we understand, hitting the coasts of various islands in Japan. And the after effect, you can see in these pictures that we're showing you, walls of water moving through. We're hearing up to 10, 11, 12 feet high. It could be higher. We heard there were grade 7 tsunami waves just running through. For the most part, when you see the coasts of Japan, especially on the east side, that it is mostly flat lands, mostly farmlands, and this is why that this wave can move unabatedly, taking buildings, taking even fires, 18-wheelers, trucks floating like twigs, and this is the concern, and this is what they are still concerned there in Japan at the moment. And reportedly, 2 confirmed deaths is what we're hearing from our producer there in Japan. And Arata Yamamoto, I believe, is still with us and watching what is the latest information coming out of Japan. And we were talking earlier, Arata, about the subway system, which is, if not the busiest in the world, certainly one of the busiest busiest subway systems in the world. Have those been completely shut down?
As far as we know, most of the train systems are still shut down. They're checking the tracks for just as a precaution that there are no cracks in the tracks. So people are stuck at the train stations right now.
So they're stuck in the train stations. What about the subway stations? Have you heard any reports, either through the local or the domestic, shall we say, networked news systems of reports of people being stuck in the subway systems?
We haven't heard anyone being stuck inside the trains so far. We know that they've stopped train service. Hopefully they were let out before this shutdown took place. But we understand that both the commuter train system and also the subway system has stopped running for now.
Now, most people would associate Tokyo teeming with people, packed wall to wall with businessmen and women. And at this moment, as we look at the time there in Tokyo, what do the streets look like?
I have a pretty panoramic view of the city here, and granted it's dark, but it looks pretty normal. If you go to those train stations, some of the very equivalent of, say, Times Square.
Right, it's about 6:15 p.m. Right, Arata? About 6:15. Yeah. Yep, p.m.
Yeah. Exactly. Then you would see hordes of people sort of stuck at the train station. But where I am, I'm also located in central Tokyo. The streets are relatively empty, and it's pretty normal here.
Okay, tell me about your building. How high are you right now? What floor?
I'm on the 27th floor.
27th floor. Is that where you were when this earthquake had hit about 4 hours ago?
That's right, yeah.
Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, I was in the office watching the parliamentary debate on TV, and suddenly a warning sign pops up saying that a large earthquake tremor might strike northern Japan. And about 30 seconds afterwards, I think, we started to feel the tremor here in Tokyo.
Arata, stand by. We're going to get an update on what is happening there in Japan. Of course, our big concern is a tsunami. Ginger Z joins us right now, and the warnings have been, be aware, there will still be more tsunami waves, Ginger.
Certainly, and the warning in any weather or any sort of situation like this means it's imminent. It just depends on how big and what it hits, because what happens when you have an earthquake and it gets that energy going up under the water, it really depends on what coast or what level of land it's hitting. So right now we've got tsunami warnings all the way surrounding Hawaii, and that's really an area that we're concerned about. There are also tsunami warnings in parts of the west coast, and so I'll kind of get out of the way here. From Seattle all the way down to the Mexican border, this thing goes throughout the entire Pacific. The most affected areas will likely be from Hawaii southward. You go Mexico, Chile, and down. And that's what's incredible about this. They've put out a warning for everyone, the entire Pacific. And so this warning is in place. Hawaii would be affected likely between their local time, 3 and 7 a.m. Right. So we'll be continuing to track this for you and continue to update you on all the warnings. All right, Ginger,
thank you very much.
Sure, Richard.
Ginger Z looking at the effects of, again, a tsunami, and as some of her earlier visuals were showing there, the tsunami wave can wrap around the islands. It's just not on one coast. And if we can go, I don't know if we go back to the map, but although the epicenter was on the east coast, the tsunami waves can wrap around kind of like the way the ripples in a pool is, or in the bathtub. When you have that force, the ripples of the water move around, hit the sides, and that is, of course, a concern. That is what we have seen in previous large earthquakes. This is a great earthquake, the 5th largest, at least on record, at 8.9 magnitude. Huge, absolutely a huge earthquake we're talking about, with a sense of what we're seeing here. The water and the tsunami waves, you really have to be on the ground to get a sense of how large this is. Arata, we were talking earlier about your experience and what you were seeing on the 27th floor.
Yeah. That's right. So we felt the tremor here. It really shook the office. Some of the tapes on my desk was spilled onto the floor. The lights were shaking, and we were asked to evacuate our office. And there was a whole bunch of us just walking down the staircase.
Give me a sense, because I was in the Loma Prieta earthquake, and the structure that I was in, the walls moved from left to right about 1.5 feet. Now, you have to kind of be in this situation to understand how crazy it might appear, and absolutely out of reality. Tell me about something like that. Was the light moving left to right 2 or 3 feet? Give me a sense of that sort of experience that you had.
You know, it felt like a sort of motion sickness on a ship, and it was hard to keep a balance standing up. You sort of had to crouch, especially walking down the stairs. It was still shaking while we were climbing down the stairs, 27 floors. It was just literally just hard to stand up straight.
So it was sort of like you were on a boat, is what you're saying, that was moving left to right. And was it a slow moving earthquake? There are earthquakes that kind of creep up on you, if you will, and that seemed to be at least the eyewitness accounts in the subway. But at where you were at there in Tokyo, was that your experience? Describe to me how it hit.
Yeah, it was definitely much slower. It sort of, as you say, it sort of creeps up on you. You don't know if you were imagining it or not. It started to shake left and right very slowly. At first, it wasn't very, it was hardly noticeable. But then the shaking got larger, and some of the tapes dropped to the floor. It was hard to sort of stand up straight. And by the time we reached ground floor, it subsided.
Right, and not to make light of this, but for those who are used to living in earthquake country, shall we say, and in your case, Japan is a earthquake country, but earthquake country in the United States being the West Coast, you sort of monitor the magnitude of the earthquake, and as it gets stronger and stronger, you react real time, shall we say. So I think what you're describing to me is that as you experience the earthquake, you're thinking, oh, that might be just another 4.5 or a 5.6 or a 6.0 or a 6.5, which is what you've been experiencing within the last day. But then it hits a certain point and you go, this is much larger than what I'm used to feeling.
That's right. And because, as you mentioned, we had an earthquake from the same location, the epicenter, some location 2 days ago. That time, we felt a tremor here, too, in Tokyo, but since this was much larger, we knew that this was going to be big in terms of magnitude Richter scale.
Okay. Arata, stand by. I know that it's a lot's going on for you there at 6:25 local time in Tokyo. This is, we're looking about roughly 4.5 hours since this 8.9 earthquake has happened. We go straight to a briefing, I understand, that's happening in Iwa Beach, Hawaii. Chip McCreary, press briefing. Let's dip in and see what he's saying.
Pacific Basin have their eyes not only on this wave, but on this exact property, and so many people not only in the Pacific, but across the whole United States, watching this particular broadcast, watching this interview. What can you tell us about the interaction that you have had with other governments, other agencies, other countries as they prepare for what may be a wave headed their way?
Well, certainly the other countries, some of the other countries have their own technical means, so they can do some kind of an evaluation on their own. Japan, for instance, which had the biggest impact, they have a very well-developed tsunami warning system, and so they issued their warning very quickly. But the other countries around the Pacific, of course, we have many small island states that wouldn't have the technical means to be able to evaluate, and they depend upon our messages. But we don't, during these events, we simply don't have the staff to be able to individually advise countries. This is all done through the Pacific Tsunami Warning System that's run by UNESCO, and we have training during times when there's not events to help those countries know what to do during these situations.
But certainly they're getting the information and your expertise. They're hearing about what you are forecasting. Have you had any problems yet today in the system that you know of?
Not that we know of, no.
Okay, so again, the headline is we're still looking at shortly before 3 o'clock, wave heights perhaps as big as 6 feet across the state, and anyone who is in an inundation zone, whether it is a north or west facing shore or elsewhere, make sure you are well inland and away from the coastline as 3 a.m. approaches. And you don't want to wait right up
giving an
until 3
update there in
a.m.
Iwa Beach, Hawaii. Just this from the Pacific Tsunami Watch Center. And of course, we want to understand what is happening there. We understand that they are expected to receive a wave of 6 to 7 feet at around 3 a.m. local time. We'll continue to watch that. We're watching the after effects of a great earthquake, a huge earthquake of 8.9 magnitude, 100 times greater than what the United States experienced at Loma Prieta not too long ago. We'll be right back.